Magic Johnson is one of the most successful basketball players of all time. A dominating force throughout the 1980s and 90s, he scored over 17,000 points, winning 5 NBA championships, and helped build the Los Angeles Lakers into one of the strongest franchises in the league. But his diagnosis of HIV brought his career to a sudden halt.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
Proving to the world that his diagnosis wasn't going to slow him down, he continued to rise and built himself an empire of over $500 million. This is the story of Earvin Magic Johnson. Born in the final year of the 1950s in the auto manufacturing town of Lansing, Michigan, Earvin Johnson Jr. was one of 10 children in his household. Basketball was in his blood, but his family barely had enough money to support their talents. His father worked long hours on the assembly line for General Motors when he wasn't moonlighting as a janitor, while his mother had a full load taking care of the house and kids. It was in this household that Earvin was first introduced to basketball by his father, who became his mentor. Earvin would often accompany his father during his job, where he learned what hard work looked like. His father had been a successful high school player himself, and when they had time off, he taught Earvin the basics of the game. This athletic background, instilled with a strong work ethic, made Earvin a competitive player once he got to school. And by high school, his talent was undeniable. But at the time, there was still a lot of resistance against black students, not only attending school, but also representing the sports teams. A few years earlier, Earvin's older brother had been banned from the team after a racist confrontation. Despite his brother advising Earvin not to put himself through the same abuse, Earvin rose to the occasion. He earned his place on the team and refused to give in to bullying. His teammates refused to pass to him and barely acknowledged his existence. This only made Earvin stronger. He became a role model for younger black players at the school. Against all odds, Earvin thrived on the court. At the age of 15, after scoring over 30 points in a game, he was described by a local sports journalist as Magic, a name that would stick for the rest of his career. With high school behind him, including one championship under his belt, Earvin had the country opening up to him with his choice of college. Instead of moving interstate, though, he opted to remain in Michigan to be close to his family, accepting an offer from Michigan State. Earvin led Michigan to the NCAA championship game against Indiana State in the 1978 season, where he defeated a team led by future Hall of Famer Larry Bird. This game would go down in history as the most-watched college basketball game ever. But it was only the beginning of his career. Guided by the strong work ethic of his parents, Earvin was still focusing hard on his studies, determined to give himself a stable career in case a career in basketball didn't pan out. But after just 2 years in college, there was no denying that he was a superstar. The following year, in 1979, he entered the NBA draft. Magic Johnson, as the basketball nation was slowly coming to know him, was at the top of every NBA team's list. But it was the Los Angeles Lakers with the first pick, where he would play, joining the towering figure of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, someone Johnson greatly admired. The LA Lakers had faith in Magic to help deliver them a championship, and in his rookie season, he did. The Lakers blasted through the season to the finals, where they faced the Philadelphia 76ers. Tragedy struck when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar suffered a game-ending injury just before Game 6. This was Johnson's time to shine. The pressure was enormous. Subbing in for Kareem, Johnson had huge shoes to fill. Because of the gap in the team, Johnson, who was usually a point guard, moved around between forward, center, and guard throughout the game. But this was where his magic was on full display. Racking up 42 points and 15 rebounds, he led the Lakers to a 16-point win over Philadelphia and won the MVP award for his performance. It was an explosive way to get his career off the ground. He would go on to become the Lakers' biggest star and the leader of the team, and according to many accounts, even had the power to get management fired. Head coach Paul Westhead was removed from his position in 1981, which caused tension between Johnson and the Lakers fan base. But he was redeemed by delivering 4 more championships for the Lakers over the following decades, including 3 finals against the Boston Celtics in an epic rivalry that defined the NBA in the 1980s, where he again faced his college rival Larry Bird. In the early 1990s, though, Johnson's career would tragically be cut short. The results of a routine medical checkup in the build-up to the 1991 season sent his life in a radical new direction. At a press conference held in California, Johnson announced to the world that he had tested positive for HIV. HIV had been ripping through the United States in the 1980s, but had publicly been associated with gay men. Less than 3 weeks after Magic Johnson announced his HIV diagnosis, Freddie Mercury died from the disease. After Magic Johnson's press conference, rumors started spreading about Johnson's sexuality. Some of these came from inside the NBA. Isaiah Thomas, who was mentored by Johnson, said that he had heard that Magic was gay. This caused a rift between the two that was only repaired decades later. Johnson was able to convert all the negative media attention into a watershed moment in the battle against the disease. His childhood experiences of racism and exclusion had prepared him to take the public pressure. He was one of the biggest sporting icons in the country. Coming out with the disease as a straight black man helped to break the stigma. Johnson told the world that anybody was at risk of getting the disease. It ushered in a wave of public health campaigns that brought much-needed awareness and action. Johnson became an advocate for safe sex, admitting that he had slept with so many women that he couldn't recall the year, many of whom he tried to track down to inform them of the bad news, in case they hadn't heard. His wife, who had only been married to Johnson for a month and a half, was forced to endure public humiliation and private suffering. Fortunately, though, new treatments were emerging that allowed Johnson to live a normal life. He even returned to basketball twice, once for the 1992 Olympics for the United States in the Dream Team. But his future success would be away from the basketball court. Even at the time of his retirement, he made it clear he had big plans in the world of business. Only 2 years after his retirement, he was recruited as a coach for the LA Lakers. He briefly returned to the court for the 1995 season, but then retired again permanently, focusing full-time on building a business career. The first big move, unsurprisingly, was investing in the Lakers. He went on to build that into a portfolio that included the LA Dodgers baseball team as well as the LAFC soccer team. In 2017, he stepped up to become the president of the Lakers, the team he had played for 13 years. The team had been dropping in performance the previous years and needed a miracle to turn things around. His biggest impact was signing LeBron James for the team. Johnson proposed to LeBron that it would benefit his business interests basing himself in Los Angeles, and on top of that, he would be responsible for reviving the Lakers. LeBron eventually agreed. Over the next couple of years, he settled as the leader of the team. In his third year at the team, the Lakers had a strong campaign to the finals and eventually won the championship, delivering LeBron his fourth championship ring of his career. Magic Johnson's acumen for leadership has led him to success in the business and executive world. Some estimates now put his net worth at over $500 million. Undoubtedly, though, the biggest part of his sports legacy is his contribution to the LA Lakers. As a player, a coach, and eventually as president, he helped to keep the team as one of the most successful sports franchises of all time. His activism after being diagnosed with HIV was a huge contribution to public health, too. During his career, he became familiar with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who had led the fight against HIV throughout the 1980s. More than 40 years later, he was happy to become the face of another public health campaign, receiving the COVID-19 vaccine in public. Johnson remains to this day a recognized figure in activism and a role model for younger sports people.